right, welcome everyone to BookNerds. Is this the second official BookNerds
I
that
Believe
think it
so.
is.
that we've done? So I believe it's our fourth or fifth book club for the year, but those who joined us last time know that we launched BookNerds, and we'll have the website up and running so that you can join us on a monthly basis in 2025 to read along with us, share your thoughts. And in 2025, we're going to have some occasional guests join us to get their inputs and their insights. But I have been excited for this one. I know you guys have as well.
Hmm.
Uh, Comic Habits. Every time I hear Kyle speak, he references it. I had to buy a new book because I needed to highlight new things, and my last book was too highlighted and written up. So it's kind of like when your Bible when you were a kid, and then you grew up, and you're like, no, I need to be able to highlight other things.
Yep.
And I was really excited too because I found a pen that has a highlighter on one end and a pen on the other, so I didn't have to
Cool.
carry around two things. It's the little things.
That's right.
Maybe
But
that's what we could brand and give away.
There you
the
go.
pens, there you go. Yeah. Ah, my wife was like, Aaron, what are you looking at on Amazon? Your cart is full of all these different pens and highlighters. But I found them. So excited to jump in. Those of us joining, please we share your comments, thoughts, and on whatever platform you're watching, YouTube, LinkedIn, or directly on Riverside, so we can get your input into this. But Kyle, I'm going to have you kick this one off because I think you were the one that really helped us gravitate toward this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. This is, I don't know about you guys, but rereading this, I think I read it the first time, I think it came out in 2017 or 2016 or 17 or something like that. And I read it then. It was super impactful, and it was fun to go back and reread it this year because you realize like some of the things that you have done in your practice or the things that I talk about when I lecture, you realize that you may not remember the quote exactly, but you realize, okay, that actually had an impact on me. That made me think a different way. And so it's been super helpful for me as I've gotten to reread it and kind of go through. And there's specific places in the book that were more impactful to me this time. I could see I didn't underline as much, right, as I did before. But then this time I thought, wow, this is actually more pertinent to me, or seems to be more pertinent to me right now in the phase that I'm in. So I'll kick it back to you guys. What were some of your big takeaways from because it was your second time through as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
my
was
second
my
time
second
Yeah,
either.
time too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I was like, oh, that did have an effect on me. I was applying it. But then the biggest thing I think that I didn't catch in the beginning was how it's even in the title, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. So he really talks, especially in the end of the book, about the monotony of what we're doing. And
Mm,
I think especially now, since all that we've been through the last 4 years, it's always been on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And I think that's maybe why there's so much chaos right now
mm,
is social media is just showing us all these quick successes, all these shiny pennies, everything that's what's going on in all of our shiny worlds, but not
Mhm.
on the day to day what it takes to be successful. And I think that's why, our employees are maybe the way that they are. Maybe that's the way that we've become is these dopamine hits. And he's really into the dopamine. So we'll talk about that later. But
mm.
why that's affecting us so much in this new evolution of the online worlds that we live in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Funny you picked up on that because that was my biggest takeaway too, where he talks about how your habits are reflections of your identity,
Yeah.
and all right, and understanding where your strengths are. It gets into genetics a little bit, um, and I think too often, we'll go to a seminar, whether it's for work or anything else, and I go, oh, I want to be that person, but nothing I have helps me be that person. And instead of trying to be me, I keep trying to be other people. Chris Wolf talks a lot about finding your identity and just finding your own you, and then your habits just reinforce that and help you become a better you. Like that was my biggest takeaway this time is,
Mm.
look internally, and then how do I refine me to be a better me.
Yeah, we talk about that, and that's where I bring up the book every time I lecture because the point I often make is I would say 99% of the lectures we get, and mine are included within that, but they're all about actions, right? They are about, hey, do this, do this, do this. And very little time is spent on reflecting what's the mindset or the identity or the belief system that is behind that action, right? So, you think of a condition like dry eye. We talk so much about, and we have, many great lectures and dry eye specialists across the country talking about how to do it. What to do when you see this, what to do when you see that. But like I said, very little time is thought about or talked about. Like, what's the why behind it? What's the identity that we need to adopt? What's the beliefs, the underlying belief system that we need to adopt first and foremost, and then reinforce through those actions that are going to carry on that habit for a long-term way. Like the one of the, I don't remember this quote the first time I read through, but the second time I read through, I got it written down. He basically says, incentives start a habit, but identity sustains a habit. I love that. Identity sustains a habit. And so that's what we see so often with, like, what we deal with a lot with trying to help other practices manage medical optometry or see more disease, or it could just be myopia management or anything like that. Um, the habit of doing those things in your practice, the habit of managing those patients is going to be sustainable when you've identified as the type of doctor that does those things, right? So if you believe in your heart of hearts that I'm the type of doctor that manages glaucoma, that manages dry eye, that manages myopia control for my patients, then you are going to be that's going to be sustainable for you and your practice. And I think that's just
Mhm.
such a super. It's so simple, but yet it's very helpful and profound.
I think one thing I even did this morning that was different um, is making patients compliant too. So I said, like where he says, I'm a reader, but I want to read at night. Okay, so set yourself up for success. Make your bed, and on your pillow, put your book. So I even said that with my patient this morning because we're giving out these eye masks, we're giving out these lid scrubs, we're giving out all these things. But I took it a step further and I was like Tom at Peak does, with your lid scrubs, put them in the shower.
Uh-huh.
And you have to get specific. When you wash your hair, after
Mhm.
you're done washing your hair, you're going to wash your eyelids. Okay, I want you to do this before you go to bed. When you make your bed in the morning, put your eye mask on your pillow. So when you
Mm.
see the eye mask, you don't have to find it. You don't have to do all these things. But I'm wondering if there's a big compliance piece that we're leaving out of our patients being successful because so many times that's why I don't actually give samples of eye drops to patients either. Because they come back, what, a year later, like, that ran out. I was supposed to get more? What do you mean?
Ah.
Um, so I did it this morning to like 4 patients, and they're like, oh, okay. And you can see these light bulbs trigger. Um, so that's, I think, what I'm taking away from the book too is this specificity of it for
Mhm.
a habit. I'm going to do this on this date at this time. So the other book
Yeah.
that we've both been reading, the Positive Intelligence one too, he was all about that starting,
Mhm.
and then that trickles down.
Once you start and throw in that cue, uh, it, Kyle, it was interesting. You did a super unscientific survey, a study on your LinkedIn profile about needing to be a specialist, right,
Yeah,
to treat dry eye versus needing to be a specialist to treat glaucoma.
yeah.
And I'll let you share the results that you got. I was a little disappointed, I'll be honest, personally, on my opinion. But looking at how we saw ourselves and identified ourselves, and the industry identified ourselves, and I think some of that mental blocking made certain people excel and others uh, prohibited from engaging. Right? If I see myself as a dry eye specialist, then I'm going to behave as such, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But if I've got to
Right.
be a dry eye specialist to treat dry eye, well, I don't identify as a specialist right now, which means I've got a big mountain to overcome of education, of skill set, of knowledge, of confidence, of technology
Yeah.
to be able to play there. Um, So kind of tying the revenge of the tipping point and this together, right? I can see it work both ways on how you identify and how you behave based on your identity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was it was interesting finding there. So basically, I did 3 successive days on LinkedIn where I asked the same exact question where I asked anybody that was saw it on LinkedIn or follows me that I forget exactly how I phrased it, but basically like, do you need to be a specialist to manage dry eye for your patients? And then if so, why? And then the next day I said, do you need to be a specialist to manage myopia, control or offer myopia control for your patients? And then if so, why? And then the next day I did glaucoma, so I did it 3 successive days. And then what was interesting to me was just the comparison between the three of them. And, I think for the most part, most people said, if I can remember the results correctly, for the most part, most people said that no, you don't need to be a specialist. Optometrist, just the general comprehensive optometrist can handle glaucoma. But when it came to more like it started to get skewed, it was about half and half for myopia, but then it was tipped in the opposite direction. So glaucoma and dry eye were opposite of each other. So people felt like no, dry eye for some reason that you need a specialist for dry eye. And so it was an interesting comparison. And I do think it goes back to what you just said. I think it goes back to identity. I think it goes back to, I think there is an equipment, component or a technology component, which I don't think it's quite true. I think that we can manage. I don't think you need to be a specialist, nor do you need to have all the latest, greatest equipment to manage dry eye really well. But yeah, it all goes into, I mean, writing this book. Like it's such an incredible book because there's so much there. You're like every time, every page, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to, like, how can I get that into a lecture or how can I get that into a course or something?
Our notes
Uh,
are our book right here. We like rewrote the book. Like you're
yeah.
looking at all my
I
notes.
look at our text
Yeah.
chain. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a good one.
what I like to start here too is for people that are listening. So he says, a habit is a routine or a behavior that is performed regularly and in many cases automatically. So we look back into optometry. That's exactly why we go to optometry school, is for these things to become automatic. And then you need this feedback loop to see if what you're doing is benefiting you or not. So that's where a lot of this stuff becomes automatic, is where you go on that 1% decline versus that 1% growth.
Hmm.
And you don't feel it. So it's all about compounding. So his 4-step model, you have the cue, craving, response, and reward. So you want to
Hmm.
make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So the big thing we were talking in our thread too was all of us are goal setters on here. We're not going to tell you that we're not
Hmm.
hyperachievers, and we're all working on that in a different course. Um, but it's this goal thing, and that's why I think it's fun here. In the end of 2024, going into 2025, everybody's like looking back, reflecting, and we all move the goalposts. But the purpose of goal setting is to win the game. The purpose of building systems, and all of us now are like, 2025 is all about systems, man. I'm not doing this stuff anymore.
Yep.
Is the purpose of building a system is to continue to play the game. So a goal is an action in time. I will be happy when. When you set processes and systems, you're happy along the way.
It's the
So that
journey.
was when I was reading it, that was like I didn't catch that the first time I read it. I did this time, and again, I think it's because I'm in a different phase in life
Hmm.
than when I read it the first time. And probably Kyle and Aaron, that's what you're getting too.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. What struck me along those same lines, the first big page that I like crumpled up, double folded, so I would find it, is on page 18, and he says, "Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habit." I took that as a gut punch, right?
Hmm.
Because it's the situation I'm in, the circumstances I'm in, and I think as humans we naturally default to negative, right? And my life kicks ass. I live a wonderful life, but we always look at the negatives. Maybe I'm a little bit overweight. Maybe I can't run as fast as I used to. Although Kyle, you and Chris have me getting ready to run in 20-degree weather, so we'll see how that
Get
goes.
ready.
But right, but I read that and it just said, well, it's because my habits changed. I no longer train for the Ironmans like I used to. I don't eat as well as I used to, and it's the outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits really struck true that if you want a benchmark or a KPI, just that's what it is. And where do I need to change?
Yeah, if you look at that page 27, and we've seen this quote, several times. I've seen it several times, on LinkedIn and everywhere. But you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So that's in a nutshell. It's just a great way to put it. And I feel the same way about looking towards 2025. I've posted recently that I'm not setting any goals at all, and that's probably hyperbole. I'll probably have a few goals here and there, but the reality is I do really want to focus on systems, and I think you're exactly right, Brown. It is about. I kind of missed that the first time through as well. Like there's a lot more happiness and pleasure in refining systems, right? You're focusing more on the moment, on the present, and you're focusing on refining, a specific habit, which is very pertaining to what we just said. The other thing that we're doing right now together as a team is this positive intelligence course, and
Mhm.
that talks about certain things that hold us back and how can we use mindfulness techniques and, habitual. How can we learn new habits and new systems when we approach different types of behaviors in our lives and different type of circumstances and change those. So it's all so intertwined. It's pretty incredible.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he also
yeah.
said there was a quote in
We
there
just
by
had a 2 weeks ago. We hosted.
you go.
Okay, I was going to say based on this one real quick. We hosted almost 200 docs over a 3-day period at Vision Source, my role in education, on financial and scaling your business and building and coding. And every single problem that got brought up broken down to a broken was traced down to a broken system in the practice. And all the successes that people shared, they were sharing the system on how they got it there. So it was super. That one quote you shared really highlighted to me that all of our problems in business, right, it really can be traced down to either a broken system, and all of our successes can get traced down to a system that's running how it's supposed to.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in there he said there's a quote by Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And then the other part and the end of it, he was talking about luck and these overnight success stories about it. So your habits become your luck. But these overnight
Yeah.
success stories, you don't look at what they built up to it. You're just seeing this tail end of it. So like the Steve Martin, or not Steve,
I
was it
love
Steve
that.
Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve Martin. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So worked at Disney World when he was like a little kid and then kept adding jokes and got better and better. And he says, you don't see this 30-year career. You see these highlights. So it was struggling for 20 years, struggling for another 5, and then 4 years of fame. But most people will see that and call him lucky. So he said, don't discount it. Like when we say things are like you're lucky, you're discounting everything behind it.
Mhm.
And we're really good at doing that now, um,
Yeah.
which is not
Well,
giving anybody credit.
no, not at all. I mean, I would. Oh, take you, right? It's really easy to not knowing you, Brown. If I just knew look from the outside, right? You're got glamour shots on LinkedIn. You're getting recognized as which by the way, you looked amazing.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes, you get recognized. You're for your success. Um, but I'm sure that what people don't see, and what I know as a friend, because you've called me on some frustrating times when you're just like, dude, I just need to talk to somebody, right? That part doesn't show up on LinkedIn, right? I want to beat my head against the wall, but is it worth it? I'm just going to throw my hands up and say, I'm not saying this is you, but I felt it in my own business. Like, what am I doing? I can go work for corporate and get a flat paycheck and just be happy. But, I think that's normal and natural to look at, right? 1 second of negativity is okay. It kind of grounds you. But getting back into all that work and realizing that the habits you built along the way are what got you to be successful and what will carry you through that success.
Yeah, and I think too, calling it out. So I've gotten more behind the scenes too, on what it's taken because everybody's like, as a mom and a wife, high growth tech company, running a practice, it's not all me. It's everybody behind me, right? So it's, again, when we focus on processes, the book I'm reading now is another one called Software as a Science, because I sell tech to doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're like tech tarded, you guys. Like, oh my God. Um, our
That's
like
good.
our teams are pushing back on so many of the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a time to get complacent. Like, we can talk about AI and all these things, but please get out of your dark room and understand your processes. And that's, I think, what's drawn us both, or all three of us, to this book, um, is we want it to look different. We want it to feel different. And that's with everybody around us. He said, a small change in what you see can lead to a big shift in what you do. So don't be a victim of your environment. You can be the architect of it. This is in chapter 6, where he talks about how motivation is overrated.
Mm.
So I liked this part too, where how many times you go in, like, your desk. I don't know what your desk looks like. If I turn my computer around, I'd be really embarrassed right
Same
now.
here. Same here.
Yeah.
So he talked about, I'm the laziest person because I put systems in place. So he talks about resetting a room.
Mm-hmm.
So before you leave at the end of the day, tidy it up. So if we're
Yep.
looking at our offices, go look at your office, especially because it's the end of the year. And I know your office probably looks like mine, just like even internally, there's trays everywhere. You're running out of trays. Like, it's a good feeling. Like, we're ready for December.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But again, forcefully those habits through it. And then I've done a lot of this work now with my team over reading the book. And I wrote down, I looked at every staff member and I look at their habit when they enter the office every day.
Mm.
And I did this, and I'll read a couple of them to you. So I said, one habit I love that everybody does. Juan Carlos in the morning comes in, gets the key, goes directly to where the glasses are in the back and gets the box and starts his jobs. Robin comes in, this is my office manager, comes in, looks at the kitchen and does what needs to be done so everybody's set up. Liz comes in, goes in directly into the first room and turns on the light. So I watched what everybody's initial habit is the second they walk in the room or they walk in the
Hmm.
door. Because there's some habits that you want to
Yeah.
change. And the way to change the habit, so if someone's perpetually late, I have a late one that is perpetually late. And we worked with her for like 18 years. But we're actually not getting to the root cause of the habit. So it's asking why. Why? Why? Why are you late? Well, I went to bed late. Why did you go to bed late? Because I was up watching Netflix for 2 hours. Why do you feel you need to watch Netflix for 2 hours? Because I was stressed at my job. Why did you leave? Like, so it's going all the way through. And you don't ask all the way through to the habit.
Hmm.
But it was a fun
Yeah.
exercise to do. So look
Yeah,
at
that's
your
really good.
team.
Yeah. Well, look at your team so you don't have to look at yourself.
And then what I said about myself, I said, Rue comes in and F's everything up with all her chi and with all her ideas. That's my habit. I go in
I
like
That's your
can
habit.
relate to
guns a
that.
blazing. Like, I just
Yep.
got back from this conference. We have to do this, this, and this.
Yep.
So I messed everything up.
That's right. With all the
Uh,
goals, right? You're coming in with all your goals. There you go.
yeah. I.
So,
That's
what do you
funny.
think? One of the connections I was drawing this morning, I was reading some was, Aaron, we've talked a lot about, and Brianna, you've probably heard or maybe read this book too. All it takes is a goal from what's his
John
name?
Acuff.
John Acuff. John Acuff talks a lot about easy goals, right? His
Hmm.
whole mindset of easy goals, and there's a ton of overlap with what we're talking about here of like when he says an easy goal for him, I believe, is something that's it's just one little action that you do
Yeah.
that is almost like embarrassingly easy if you were to tell somebody else about it. But it doesn't take you very long. But it's just one specific action that just gets you kind of going in the right direction.
Hmm.
And I think the reason that is such a helpful thing because we've implemented that at our practice in a number of different systems and protocols of like, every quarter we'll kind of think of like of each person, hey, what's one easy goal that you can do? Like, for example, our front desk person, she's going to be one easy goal one quarter was, I just need you to call one person to try to fill that gap in the schedule. Just one
Mhm.
a day. That's all I want you to do. There's a ton of like underlying processes within of a habit, like a ton of underlying key components of a habit within just an easy goal that I thought was really interesting. One of them is just his chapter that I loved was on reps, where he talks
Mhm.
about, I forget what the chapter name was. But maybe it was about motivation. I forget which one it
No, I think it's
was.
at the end. I think
But
it's
basically, it was all about creating automaticity, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Walk slowly but never
never
backward, I
backwards.
believe, is
Yeah.
chapter 11. But basically, he's saying each time you repeat an action, you are activating a particular neural circuit associated with that habit. This means that simply putting in your reps is one of the most critical steps you can take to encoding a new habit. And so that's, I don't know, I made that correlation in my mind of like easy goals. And it makes a lot of sense why that works, is if, because it's an easy way to put in a rep. And I thought at the beginning of that chapter, that explanation or the example he gave of the college professor, basically at the University of Florida, he assigned half of his students. It's a photography class. He assigned half of his students. Hey, you're going to get graded based upon how many photos you take. So if you take 100 photos, you're going to get an A, 90 a B, and so on and so on. And the other half of the group, they got graded on how good that one photo was. And basically, he found at the end of the semester that the group that did 100 photos, their quality was way higher than the quality of the group that just focused on getting that perfect photo. And so he uses that, and obviously there's some other things within that could explain it, but he uses that just to talk about how important it is to take action versus just motion. I think we had a text thread about that last week too,
Yeah.
motion versus action. But I love that that thought of just like getting your reps in. There's so
And
many
that builds
ways you
on
can
that
build on
builds on
that.
the law of least effect that he talked about, right? Because we're
Mm,
naturally inclined to do whatever's that takes the least amount of energy. And so
yeah.
if we set a task for ourselves that's huge, I'm going to find some ways to excuse myself from doing it as opposed to just a really small step that I can do.
Mm,
Right? Brianna, you have mentioned multiple times on the positive intelligence course that all you do in the morning is your only goal in the morning is to put your headphones in when you
Hmm.
wake up, and that triggers the rest of the chain of everything you want to do with that program. But it's not get up and listen to a few minutes worth or engage in the program. It's just put my headphones in, right? Which is super easy to do.
Yeah. And that's in the book too. He talks about the ballet dancer who
Hmm.
her goal was the only goal was to get in the taxi and
Yeah.
tell the taxi to where to go. So it wasn't, okay, get up, put on my tights, go work out for 2 hours, do all these things. Her goal was to get in the taxi and tell him to go to the gym. One thing too, I like what he said is self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. So disciplined people are better at structuring their environment that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. They spend less time in tempting situations. The people with best self-control are the ones that don't use it very often.
I
So
like that.
that goes back and kind of tying back to what you were saying in chapter 11, the
Hmm.
quality over quantity. So you really we've been taught since little kids, you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good. On page 155, still on the same topic, one of the aha moments for me was a sentence. He says, "Business is a never-ending quest to deliver the same result in an easier fashion," which I thought was interesting because we're always trying to deliver something different as opposed to have the same delivery, just make it easier, which is why you see other entities right? Warby Parker, because you didn't have to leave your house. Amazon, you didn't have to leave your house. I'm not saying that they're better, but the goal is just an easier delivery. And I went back about a year ago into the office because I wanted to test how easy we were to work with. I grabbed a pair of Maui gyms and said, "Hey, I want to buy these." Pretend I'm a patient, and my staff's first question back was, "Great, when was your last eye exam?" And I said, "Does that matter? I just want to buy these." And they said, "Okay, well, are you using prescription? Are we making a prescription?" I said, "I just want to buy these." And they said, "Well, what kind of insurance do you have?" And I'm like, "I just want to buy these." And they said, "Okay, well, we need to put you in our system, so here, fill out this giant piece of paper." And I said, "This is why we're not good at selling sunglasses at Werner Optometry," right?
That's
Because
so
not
true.
we did the opposite of that quote, right? We were never in any quest to deliver the same product in a much more complex way. Um, and I think that one of the reasons you're so successful, Bree, is that Dr. Contact Lens is trying to deliver the same product in a different way, right? And Kyle, with what you're doing, whoa, she just went in the dark. Um, Kyle, you and Chris, with what you guys are doing through iCode, right? Just how do I refine that process so that we can do what we do, but in a much easier and more simplified fashion? And I guess I never thought of business that way, right? I always thought it was a challenge and we're fighting and it's a game and we're constantly trying to stay a foot ahead as opposed to, hey, how can I do this easier? How can I
Mhm.
just simplify this whole process and everybody's happy?
Doesn't that make it a little freeing? Like when you think
Oh,
about
it's
that,
totally.
Aaron. I mean, like it. Yeah, I agree. There's you think of it as like this huge, daunting task, but at the end of the day, if you think of it like that, man, you can just ask your team every day, hey, what little thing is kind of driving our patients nuts right now? What little thing is creating a little bit of too much friction in how they're interacting with us, whether it's scheduling an appointment, whether it's during the workup, whether it's during my exam, during the education and the purchase of the eyewear or whatever it is they're scheduling. Um, what's causing friction? And let's reduce that friction. That's our job, you know, because that's one of the things, values of our profession is we really do have like a built-in system that has its own habits and it's created a lot of success for a lot of people, right? Uh, but our job really is to take that and continue to refine it, and that's what really at the end of the day what creates different types of practices and different businesses is just we're all refining in different spots, right?
Yeah. And it's that whole, he says, addition by subtraction is, and I think this is more critical than ever with the
Mm.
human component, that we look for ways to make it easier and make the investment now. So 2025 again, like I've told my staff, guys, even when we stop printing prescriptions and just text them, right, we will be successful.
Yeah.
So this is about making it easier for the patient. I love to double down on that, Aaron. We have to find easier ways to do it. Many of us are going to 4 different websites to place an order. We're looking up benefits in 9 different places. We're closed for lunch because our staff is overworked. So we've missed 9 phone calls for patients that want to do appointments with us. So this is the time to invest in technology. Again, do not be tech tarded. Do not shy away from this. But you're going to see your staff push back. They are, because nobody likes change, but people do like to evolve. We've said this many times in our previous podcasts.
Yeah.
Is I stopped using the word change. That was my habit. We are evolving. So do it together. And one thing is, I don't know if you guys have this staff member in your team. Um, she is she's the laziest, most productive person on my staff. So if I want something accomplished, guess who I give it to? And I watch her how she does it. And that's the process,
Mm.
because she will
Great
figure
idea.
it out
Right.
Yeah.
without all the rigmarole, because she wants to be done at a certain, like, it's amazing to watch her work. And then she gets all her work done efficiently, so now it looks like she's not doing anything when she's ran circles around the whole office. So then who do I go pick on? Because it looks like she's not
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah. The Myopia Collective. Cooper Vision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. That was the big problem. Remember when we all, both of you I think might be in this category. Am I the oldest one here? When we hated on millennials. And I remember a while ago we had conferences about how to deal with these darn millennials that are showing up, right? And they're hyper lazy.
I think it's the generation below millennials because I am a millennial, Aaron.
Well, that's why I said no offense to you guys, right? But that generation learned to become efficient, right?
You did.
How do I cut corners in a sense that just to get to the end that I need to get to and have the outcome I need rather. I'm not cutting corners on quality. I'm just let me go through this quickly. My current staff is the same way, although they're that younger generation, and so now I have to remind them that they're holding a computer in their hands that they can talk to. So if you don't know how to spell a medication, just ask Siri and she'll tell you, right? That way, at least the chart is spelled properly. But I saw that big shift there in the industry of saying, how do I do this more efficiently? And now we got to teach them how to look busy after they're done, so they're not sitting playing Candy Crush,
Right.
with nothing to do because they finished their job. But I love what you talked about, how getting rid of things and simplifying by getting rid of. On one of the business optometry courses we teach about scaling, so taking your business from a job to a real business that doesn't depend on you. We renamed the entire course EASE, which is an acronym that stands for Eliminate, Automate, Systematize, and then Elevate. And the first thing was eliminate, because what are we doing that we can get rid of?
Yeah.
But if you want to grow, you got to get stuff off your plate. And there's so much crap that we do, which is what we're doing in 25, is looking, to your point, Kyle, all of our processes, especially our pretests, and say, hey, instead of doing a 20-minute pretest, what can I cut out? What can I feel like I can survive on, which is tough because my doctors are all pushing back saying, no, I need this test, I need that test. But do we really? What can we do without, just to make the experience a whole lot more efficient and better without diminishing the product that we're delivering?
And that's too, when he talks about it, we are talking about the friction that we can remove. He talks also, if you want to change things, put friction into the equation. So like one thing I'm like, guys, if we want to stop printing prescriptions, maybe every time you print something, you have to be the one to go put paper in the printer and hit print. So, I mean, I wouldn't, actually, maybe I will go that far.
Oh, I like that one.
But like, it's these little things that you think we're just it's always on to the next. We have so many leaky buckets in our practices that if we did put that little bit of friction there, maybe we don't have to see all these patients.
Where we were really successful, and it just dawned on me now. For a while, a few years ago, we got really stuck in I can't get my patients to upgrade their contact lenses. Right? They wanted to be an older technology because that's what they were in, and they were happy. And it was a hard conversation. And I said, fine. I took all of those trials from the older ones because you have to have them because God forbid you don't have what a patient wants in the office. I took them all and threw them in the dumpster. And I said, look, if you want them, tell a patient we can order them. But knowing our habits of optometrists, which is always giving somebody gift with purchase, right? You're a contact lens wearer. I need to give you a pair of lenses because you came in today. And I just, that there's a habit of having to give you something. And since we couldn't give you the older technology that we didn't want to give you anyway, I would get the newer technology and say, what you're in is great. I don't have it. What I do have is these. But if you want the old ones, it's okay. So that just that simple change of forcing them to grab a different product almost overnight shifted everybody to where we needed to go.
That's good. That's like
But
how to
because they
break a bad
didn't
habit.
have it at all, and then I use that to refine our entire contact lens offering. So right now, I mean, we're 80% with one company. It maximizes buying opportunities and pricing and makes things simple, right? But using that, hey, only have what you want to do in the office, really drove the system change without having to try to change habits. Added
Yeah,
the
that's
friction.
good. So let's review that. So Brianna, you said how to create a good habit is, you said make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. But then on the flip side, he reviews how do you break a bad habit, right? And it's just the inverse of each one of those. So the first law or the inversion of the first law, instead of making it obvious, is you make it invisible. So essentially, you're making the cue or you're changing the environment, making it invisible. Number two, instead of making it attractive, you're making it unattractive, right? So you're reframing your mindset. Three, instead of making it easy, you're making it difficult, right? So you're that whatever that rep is, you want to make that difficult. And then the last one, instead of making it satisfying, you try to make the end goal unsatisfying, right? So you have that some sort of a negative reinforcement. So that's what, you're intentional about your bad habits of trying to induce some sort of negative reinforcement to it. And I think we know this probably implicitly, like we kind of sense this, but just to have it like laid out like this, I think is super helpful because
Yeah.
you realize how you can, like you just said, Aaron, apply it to your practice like that.
hmm And this system of building, having this cheat sheet, building that system to break it, as opposed to say, I want to stop doing this or I want to
Yeah.
start doing that, saying, how do I satisfy each one of these? It really helps to build the process so you're not fighting it on your own.
Yeah. And that's where, too, he says habits are the entrance ramp to the highway,
Mhm.
meaning break everything back into a 2-minute thing. So, like in the morning, my routine, I wanted to start my routine, which I don't instantly put in my earbuds. I love when you said that. I kind of like hurt. I was like, I don't say hi to anybody. I was sitting where I just put in my earbuds. But I do wake up before the household wakes up to get myself going because I realized I was just going in chaotic and this has really helped me. So it was another course I did. So mine is I put in my earbud and it starts my routine. So that's again, you have to standardize before you optimize. And when we talk about this, what page is it where he has that graph? It's like a dopamine graph. Hold on, I gotta find it.
I love that, by the way. Standardize before you optimize,
Yeah,
because
Yeah, that's really good
we go the opposite way first. We try to make it
for
perfect
sure.
yeah.
before
It's the,
For
we
sure.
start.
I found it. It's the Goldilocks rule. So
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
boredom, and boredom is actually where people make it or break it because we cannot be bored anymore. Heaven
Right.
forbid we're like standing in line for 2 minutes. Like, what are we all doing? He also said we spend like 600 minutes on 2 hours a day on social media is 600 hours a year.
Oh, that's not good.
Like,
No.
we can all be very more productive. Um, but boredom and then failure. Do you guys remember the Goldilocks rule? Can somebody go into that for me? Like the flow state?
I can't find it.
It
I read it.
Um,
it really talks about how if it's we got to challenge ourselves just enough. So the Goldilocks rule is that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks are just the right edge of their current abilities. So it's just hard enough to make you push and reach success, And he talked about playing sports. Like if I was going to play basketball against a 5-year-old, that's really not challenging. I'll get bored quickly. If I'm going to play basketball against LeBron James, it's not a challenge. I'm going to be bored quickly. But if I play basketball against somebody who's maybe slightly better than me, like Kyle, right, it'll be challenging because I'll win some, I'll lose some, I'll feel like I can still obtain. And so that'll keep me just enough interested to make it fun.
Yeah. And I do love this. He says, missing a habit once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit.
That hurt too.
That one
Man,
punched me in the
I
face. I was
felt
like,
that one.
oh.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I like what you said about the habits and the changing though. So I don't know if I told you guys this on the other program we've referenced. It's really good. I found myself defaulting when I'm standing in line to scrolling on Instagram and whatnot. So I deleted all my social media, but I put the Positive Intelligence app in the same spot that the Instagram app was on my phone. And I found myself in the app without any consciousness of going there because
wow.
have like my finger
that's
just happened
super
to
cool.
go to that same spot. And since I was there, I was like, well, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I guess I'm, you know, rubbing my fingers together, doing something, right? And so it's because it's hard for me to introduce something new, but I just replaced what I would have done in meaningless anyway. Um, and I found that I didn't miss social media at all, except for a lot of my friends. That's the only way they communicated with me. I started getting phone calls saying, why are you ignoring me? But putting that app that I wanted to engage with in the place of the other one made a huge difference.
I
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
good.
So,
So
Yeah, he
what do you
said,
think, what do you think, like big picture, if you were to, we've been talking about how this applies to some of our own personal lives and practices, but anything else that you can think of, like specific insights where you, we said before that you're probably somewhat implicitly applying these things already because you've read it in the past. But now, beyond what we talked about with the systems for 2025, are there any specific things that you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this year because of what I read here? This is something that's going to be different for. I'm going to maybe it's in your practice or a system or in your own personal life or even with your team members or your staff. Is there anything specific that you thought of there?
I really liked the where he talks about the different goals. It kind of related back to Simon Sinek's Start With Why, where he had the circles and the pyramids, but there was a an outcome based habits or goals or an identity based. I'm
Mm,
paraphrasing while I'm trying to find it. And instead of saying I want to do something, I want to run a 10K, I want to lose 5 pounds, I want to do something else. Changing the verbiage just to say I am a runner, right? I am more healthy. I am a
mhm.
reader, and using that not just with myself, but with my team and my kids and my family. So we're an office that does this.
Mm,
There's not a set goal that we're trying to hit. There's not a number we're chasing as much as we're an office that keeps people on time. We're an office that respects time. We're an office that challenges the status quo and just make it who we are as opposed to making it a value or a goal that we're obtaining to achieve. I hope that makes sense.
absolutely.
yeah, it actually hit really home because I think that that's where on our text message thread, just looking back to it, it's just I was reading another book and he talks about how snowflakes are all different. We're taught
Mhm.
since we were a kid, there's not a snowflake in the world that is the same. And he goes, bullshit. Every snowflake is the same. It's 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, and it's frozen. So I think too, we try to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again when it's specifically that. We want to make it efficient for the patient to do business with us,
Yep.
and we are an office that makes it efficient for a patient to do business with us. So that's what we're going to be working on is breaking down the 5 things in our office, right? On the 5 levers we can pull, we can see more patients effectively, efficiently, and that means processes. What are you guys doing that a computer can do? What are you doing that a human should only be doing? And he talks about that in the book. We got to sell more contacts, sell more glasses. And Kyle and Aaron, we all hate the word specialized, but it's, again,
Yeah.
it's all taking care of the community. So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
myopia management, dry eye, what is the process? So we can all do it the same, especially with the three doctors in the practice. I want them to get the same experience, regardless of, yes, we all
Who they
throw
see.
our snowflake in there. Um, but that's kind of what we're looking for 2025.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there, Aaron, makes me think like I think it's really cool to say a lot of times that we talk about core values. We talk about because I'm thinking about what you're talking about with identity and instilling that mindset about we're the type of practice that does this. My mind immediately goes to my core values with the practice, and we're very open. We're very clear on what those core values are. We review them every single week at our team meetings, but I would almost, in my mind, I think I want to restate them in a way that is more identity based, right? So that we can, one of our core values is small town hospitality, for example. So, my goal for my practice is I want my patients to feel like when they come in and see me, it's like having a cup of coffee with a friend, right? And so that's just from my small town of 400, grew up in a town of 400, farm kid mentality that I want even in, the suburbs of West Omaha to have that sort of mindset that people just feel like they can be really well connected with us. But it's figuring out how do I restate that in a way that is breeds identity with the team and the staff. Uh, and not only does that help, but it makes me think like, yeah, core values are great and we always talk about them, but when you think about how closely tied identity is to action, it just reinforces how important it is to be doing that in your practice, right? And also just to have like if you've got multiple doctors in your practice, you need to talk about the shared identity that you have because that it's not just about like, hey, we're all optometrists and we all want to make money, so we can work together. No, it's like it's way more than that. It's you need to have a shared identity that's really clear, that you're reviewing, that you are making consistent throughout your entire practice through all your processes. So to me, like just as you were saying that, it just reinforced like, wow, this is really important. I knew it was important before, but it just really impacts me that way.
In the
Yeah.
last chapter, he says, success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process to refine. So I think, too, we get stuck in our habits of this is the way it's always been done. And I've never been in office to do that. I think one thing we've done a while, ask your staff, what is giving you energy and what is sucking your energy? Something is sucking their energy. There's so much tech out there that can help you. But
Mhm.
we also need to be looking for it. It's not just going to knock on your door. And if it does knock on your door, you have seven gatekeepers that just pushed it out the door.
Right.
So get them involved in it as well. Um,
Yeah.
but I love Aaron and Kyle is kind of bringing this all together is we are an office that does this.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I apologize. I just found where the chats are coming in at and the conversations from the listeners. They changed the layout a bit. Um, but Kurt and I think this would be a fun discussion to finish on. Kurt says I don't know Kurt's last name, but he says I'm actually kicking the idea around of writing a book. Right. So if we were going to take everything that we just talked about, right, and have a beer with Kurt, right,
Hmm.
I think that my advice based upon what we just said in Atomic Habits is stop thinking about writing a book and right, what's your 2 minutes of writing a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sit down, grab a notepad, right, and then 2 minutes writing a day. Um, okay, Kurt Steele, I'll call you out because you gave me your last name. I would love to read a book by Kurt Steele,
Yeah.
and absolutely, that would be an educational and just your sense of of knowledge and wisdom and humor would be a fantastic book. If you guys
From
don't know
the
Kurt
Book
Steele,
Nerds podcast of
yes,
January
There we go.
2025, we're going to be
yes,
discussing Kurt Steele's
this
book.
book.
I love
Oh, that
it.
would be amazing. That would be amazing.
He's like,
So,
oh
but
shit, I
Kurt,
gotta
yeah,
get started.
yeah, right. The Kurt Steele book. He just texted me. It's me. Yep. But Kurt, I would absolutely love that. And you are wealth of knowledge, but you got to start. We all have to start at square one, right? And so, if this is me talking to me, and now us talking to Kurt, right? Don't think about being a book, right? Kurt, you're now an author,
Yeah.
and right, Kurt is now an author, and so is it a paragraph a day? Is it 500 words a day? Is it a page a day? Is it 2 minutes a day? Right? I think just you start writing and watch that small little
Get the reps
uh,
in.
steps grow. And Kurt,
What?
oh, this is a fantastic. So Kurt wants to write a book on how to accept moonshine as reimbursement. As
It'd be a
for those
great
who don't know
title.
Kurt,
Be a great
I
title.
believe that might be not a joke, but an actual statement from Kurt, which is why I would
Yeah.
love to read that book. Right? But yeah, Kurt, you're now a writer, and when I see you next, I want to hear what author Kurt is up to.
Be careful around this group because we're a bunch of cliff pushers. Like, if you want to do
Yep.
something, you come talk to Aaron and Kyle and me. Like,
Yep.
what's holding you back? What, like, do we
Yeah.
need to talk
Why
about
aren't you
this?
doing
Like, where do
this?
you start?
Yeah.
Just go. So if we
Let's
look
talk about
back
motion.
to Aaron, we had a discussion. It was almost a year ago to the day. We
Hmm.
discussed our
Hmm.
first book. And
Yeah.
then again, these things just start to snowball. And
Hmm.
it's about that accountability piece to it. Because as people in our practices that are typically the smartest person in your practice is you,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and
Yeah.
that really is a bad place to be. So surrounding yourself by great people is what this
Yep.
is all about. And we have so much knowledge in this industry to do that. But Kyle, let's finish it up on that action versus motion thing. I think it's a good thing.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I think I just lost it, but basically, I'm gonna have to look for it. Sorry, I forget what page it was, but I found it resonated. I don't know if you could find it. I've got a little note on it before I can find the pages
Say,
here. Nope, I got it. Sorry. Uh, Basically, the quote is sometimes motion is useful, and I'll break into the quote here. It resonates with me personally because if we, get to be really vulnerable here, one of my, saboteurs when we talk about what the things that hold us back is avoidance and, procrastination and avoiding conflict and those things. And I tend to way overthink. So it's probably like, I've probably been thinking about something for 10 years before I do it, quite honestly. Lecturing, I've been thinking about lecturing for consistently for probably 5 to 7 years and wanting to do it. And then just in the last 3 or 4 have really, started to get the reps in and that. But anyhow, it's super helpful to see the differentiation here between motion and action on 142. Sometimes motion is useful, but it will never produce an outcome by itself. It doesn't matter how many times you go talk to the personal trainer. That motion will never get you in shape. Only the action of working out will get the results you're looking to achieve. So he says motion is kind of like the preparation, right? The talking about it, whereas the action is what creates the results, right? And so I think as much as, we've already talked about the reps, as much as we can be people, uh, not just us three, but also within our practices and within our industry, people of action, that's where, again, it's just focusing on a system of action versus focus, and that's going to produce the results. We're not, we're the lag indicator of the outcome is going to take care of itself as long as we're creating our habits that align with our overall goals and our values. The outcomes are going to take care of themselves, like I said. So I think that's
I
just super helpful for me.
and I'll follow it up on this. I read one thing. It was like, if you think it's going to take you 10 years, it's going to take you 10 years. If you think
Very
it's going
true.
to take you 5 years, it's going to take you 5 years. If you think it's going to take you a month, it's going to take you a month. And if you think it's going to take you a day, it's going to take you a day. So I'm always, do you guys know what swallow the frog is?
Uh-uh.
So if I put a jumping frog, I walked in the morning, I put a jumping baby frog on your desk, and I was like, Kyle, you have by the end of today at 5 o'clock to swallow this frog. You have two ways to do it. You can, number one, do it right then and there, just like, all right, I've done it. Or you can sit and look at this green jumpy thing, and you can think about it all day. So one thing I've done is in the morning, what's your hardest thing that you need to do? When you get that done, everything else is easy. If you have to sit there and think about it and think about it and think about it, that's what takes up your brain capacity. So it's a fun thing to get your
Yeah.
staff involved, is like, what was your frog that day?
Yeah, that's good. I like
Yeah,
that.
I like that a lot. And I like the motion you talked about too, Kyle. That so eating the frog, hitting the hard thing, and the motion, building the habit of motion. I talk to my fourth year interns
Yeah.
that come through and tell them that the number one, at least for me, deciding factor in a leader is just being able to make decisions. And and it's okay if you make a wrong one, just make another one that corrects course, and then make another one that corrects course. And I never saw that as a habit in tying into until you shared just what you shared. But it's that just it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to do something. And and the habit of doing something, skill of doing something creates the habit of doing something that then gets you where you need to go. And so once you eat the frog the first day, right, it's a little less challenging to eat the frog the next day. And then maybe by the end of the month, you're looking forward to the morning frog diet.
Maybe you've made it satisfying, right?
Yeah. Sprinkle some pepper on there, squeeze a little lime, right?
That's right.
If you do
Oh,
that daily, by the way, if you complete 15 hard tasks, I did the math here. You have 15 hard tasks each week. That's 60 hard tasks a month. That's 180 hard tasks a quarter, and 720 hard tasks a year.
I
So
don't
when
even know
we
if I
talk
have
about
780 hard tasks.
compounding, because he talks a lot about
Yeah.
compounding in
Yep.
the book, that's what compounding does. So
It does.
swallow the frog,
Wow.
everybody.
Swallow the frog.
Swallow the frog. I love it. Guys, we're at the hour. I love these. This is the highlight of my month. And so we will hopefully we'll have the website up and ready. We'll put it in the show notes when we post this recording. Join us next year if you've got suggestions for books. I know Kyle, Brianna, I certainly don't have a list of or a challenge finding books, but we're always interested in seeing more and more and more. So please share your thoughts. Thank you for joining us. Share this, and for me, it's just a community that uplifts each other, shares insights, and not only keeps me sane, but as Bree said, right, pushes me off a cliff sometimes in a good way.
And our next book is The Obstacle is the Way.
The
Um,
next book is The Obstacle Goes Away. Yep.
Yep.
yep,
Ryan Holiday.
Yep. I'm excited. I haven't read anything by him, so
it's
it'll
your
be good.
jam.
And
You'll like it.
oh,
Oh no, he's
cool.
going to become a stoic here, Kyle, the next time we see him.
Yeah, you will.
Me being a stoic?
I don't know.
Well, I thought we were talking about baby steps. I've never been accused of being a stoic, but I like the challenge. Um, yep. And then Trevor's going to be on with us too. Trevor Maurer is going to be on to help discuss it. He recommended it, so looking forward to that. Have a happy holidays, everyone. If we don't connect with you before then, happy holidays, happy New Year. Um, Survive the year, end strong. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to set up goals. Right. In fact, this team, I think Kyle, you said it. We're not doing goals. We're just looking at refining systems. And
Amen.
oh, cool.
Awesome.
That's it from here. Thanks all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take
See
care.
ya.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and our YouTube channel, both linked in the show notes. Now, here's something exciting. We're giving away a 1-year subscription to Comprehensive Optometry Simplified. All you have to do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot, and email it to me at questions@icodeeducation.com. We'll put that in the show notes as well. We'll be selecting a winner on December 15th, so don't miss your chance to get access to this valuable resource. Thanks again for listening. I can't wait to see your reviews.